DDG, episode 67. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? Another Tuesday, worked out, got some news.
Yeah. New microphone, Michael Swick.
Yeah, new microphone, so I might sound lower. I don't know how this will end up going. I might need to get the extender. I upgraded from the Yeti to the Elgato Wave 3. It's way shorter microphone than I'm used to, so I might be leaning forward sometimes.
Just an arm. Get an arm. I know you hate arms, but...
I have an antique desk from like the 60s, 50s, so I don't know where I would put that exactly, but I might.
Yeah. So we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly show that releases every Thursday on podcast services of choice. We live stream the show on, lately, like the last 5 or 6 weeks, on Tuesdays around 5 o'clock Eastern time as well. Twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. If you could leave us a review on any of the podcast services, that would be appreciated. And share the show. Tell a friend to tell a friend. That would be awesome to get some more ears on the show. And just to help us grow and get feedback from everybody. Any kind of feedback is always good. To different ways, better ways that we can do the show, or things that you'd like to see us do. All of the social things are linked in the show notes, and those are all different ways that you can help support us as well. And that, again, just the biggest thing that could help the most is to just share the show. Like that's the huge thing, is sharing the show. Is always a big help. All right, and with that in mind, we're going to throw it right over to news, and not a shocker at all, our first story.
Yeah, the news is with E3 continues, and looks like they are doing something this year. They're actually going to do a digital event. They promised to do a digital event last year, but they pulled back. Did they pull back last year? I couldn't remember. It was like probably 2 months before. They pulled back
later. Like they didn't cancel E3 until around, or actually until, so like it's February right now, but like because we actually applied to go to E3. They didn't cancel E3, I want to say, until like April. And then I felt like that they tried to say, like, we're going to do something, and we hired this company. And then, like, in the early May or middle of May, they're like, no, this isn't working. So I think that was more of a time-restricted thing. If I had to guess, I would probably say they've had about 75 or 80% of their faculty, like, focused on a digital event, and another 20% planning an in-person event, just in case things got better. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like them introducing this in February gives them, I feel like they're not going to put egg on their face twice. So them coming out and saying this, I would hope that they actually have a couple more things a little bit more rock solid in, why say it now then? Like, why say it right now?
So this is basically what happened is their pitch deck got leaked. So all this stuff can change as companies agree or not agree to do this. So here's some of the highlights of the pitches they were giving. It would be a 3-day live stream event from June 15th to the 17th. It will feature a June 14th preview night, multiple 2-hour keynote sessions. So I would assume the keynotes would be Ubisoft, Activision, Microsoft, that sort of thing. So traditional press conference. An award show, and then other time slots available to publishers and developers. And then supplemental preview event for media the week prior, and demos on consumer platforms. So trying to get demos out to people, which we saw last year with Xbox, and then Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest had demos. So we've seen that before. And then my favorite part is they will allow their partners to stream demos to media. The whole, like, we'll allow you to do that if you want to hold like Zoom meetings on this, online, just to do Q&As and give some time with media to developers. So this was all pitched. So right now, I guess the ESA is going around and telling all the publishers, like, hey, this is what you can do to sign up. So the Video Games Chronicles, they reached out to publisher, they didn't name who, and said, like, hey, would you be doing this? And the publisher was like, no, we'll just do this ourselves, because the ESA is asking for a 6-figure sum to have the honor of being in, this set.
Well, and from a business standpoint, like, they're trying to survive, like everybody else is trying to survive. Like, this is money that they're losing. Yeah, they might be saving money because they're not renting the LA Convention Center, but at the same time, like, it's still going to cost something. Now, the benefit that I think that this could have is not for Ubisoft, Activision, Microsoft, Sony, the big, whatever you want to call them, the big guys. I think that would be something cool for other companies that to give a chance to shine some light on there during this time frame of I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but and then it sounds like too, like what you're saying is that they're asking for too much money, which is a shame, because that also knocks out the lows. Like I guess lows is a bad term. The smaller developers are like
indie and AA developers, like Focus Home Interactive.
We can't afford that. Like we can't afford that. The return on investment probably isn't high enough. And then the AAA developers and publishers are like, well, we'll just do it our damn self. And then so that just kind of leaves this middle thing, which may or may not work. I don't think it will work, but at the same time, if it's a small game, like a Darksiders style game, I guess would be a way that I would say it, like a THQ showcase. I think that knowing that this is the week to pay attention to video game news is better than, oh, this company's doing it on Tuesday, June 15th. This company's doing it on Thursday, July 2nd. This company's doing it on, August 12th. Like, the staggering of everything can be overwhelming to an average consumer. To you or I, we're like, hey, this is fine. Like, I'll just watch this Ubisoft Forward on the third Thursday in June. And then I'll watch Activision's event on the fourth Tuesday of May. Like, it's fine. But I think for people that are trying to follow the industry of like the allure of E3 is kind of like similar to what goes on during like a Super Bowl week of like, it's Super Bowl week. There's all these things always happen during Super Bowl week.
Yeah, we definitely, like, the only pitch I can think that this would work for developers, especially like AA, like not quite like the Ubisoft, AAA, is just like to be more organized of like, here's the game plan, here's the time, and we'll take care of stuff. Though this seems like ESA is more like, you'll be included in that E3 3-day period, right, but you're going to do all the work, sort of thing. If the ESA can go to these smaller publishers and be like, hey, not everyone had a successful show last summer when they held it their own. We saw plenty of shows that just didn't work. Like, I forget what it was, but there's like the indie one where it was like 2-3 hour streams, like over the course of a weekend. And it was just too much and stuff got lost in the shuffle. It was just like 30-second trailer, 30-second trailer, 30-second trailer over and over again, which I'm sure that wasn't beneficial as much as if it was just featured in like a sizzle reel at a big press conference.
Versus the possibility of 20 minutes of you talking about your game to a host, and then, or you playing the game while you're talking to a host and you're talking about the game and showing things that are happening, is better exposure than a trailer. Obviously releasing a trailer is much more cost effective for a developer than however much this 20 or 30 minute time slot is going to cost. And it sounds like it might cost a lot. Shame on ESA if they're doing that. You can figure out, like, so you're gonna like grant access to my Zoom server to broadcast. Like, no, I'll just, like, the developer's like, I'll just do it my damn self.
Yeah. The benefit would be like the Rolodex, the virtual Rolodex ESA has access to, that would bring people in, as opposed to like a PR person having to just like, okay, how am I gonna like match the amount of appointments I would get during E3.
But I think that also has to do with like what platform are you watching it on? Like, how many people at this point in time, if you're a fan of Call of Duty, you're linked, you're subscribed to the Call of Duty YouTube channel that they have, or the Twitch channel. Like, and then when they do something, they do it there. If you're a fan of a certain game, like the Darksiders example that I used, you're probably subscribed to the Darksiders YouTube channel, but I don't think that you're subscribed to ESA's Twitch.
Yeah, they would have to. They would probably have to partner with, like a YouTube or a Twitch, and make sure they have front page coverage, because, as much as like Darksiders could have found success with Genesis by the people subscribed to their YouTube channel, that's a very limited amount of people subscribed to that. So like the broad appeal, ESA will have to prove in their pitches that like, we have broad appeal still, we still matter, and then that's when they're gonna have to work with Twitch. This is what your money's
going to get you. These are the eyes that it'll get you, and you can do that when it's in LA and it's in person. Like, all of these media people. Here is a list of
50,000
hundreds
people
of that want that,
attending.
you know, here's the press list of people that will be attending that you can attempt to schedule appointments with. And I'm sure that the capture rate on that is in the 25 to 30%. You know, we used to get the emails like, hey, do you want to check this out? And you know, years ago, as long as it was coming to PlayStation and we had an available time slot, we went and saw it. You know, so like there's all of those things, and that's just from those people. That's coming from cold emails that like, hey, you know, it would be dear E3 goer, E3 media. Like that's how the emails would be addressed to us versus, you know, like, you know, pull the curtain back a little bit. When Ubisoft emails me or Michael, it's a direct email from a named person that we've like had drinks with. You know, not a cold source that's like, hey, please see my game. I'm PR. I've been doing this for 2 years. Please come check this out. That would be even harder to do from a digital event standpoint as well.
Yeah, so, you know, like you'd think people at home would have more time to do stuff, but like it's hard to like justify, especially like when we've done a couple like virtual events, you know, in the past year. Some of those virtual events are like, hey, since you're at home, we want 2 to 4 hours of your time. Yeah. You know, as opposed to in person where it's like, can you give us 30 minutes?
Right.
So like doing it all virtually, like maybe you would want the structure of an ESA to jump in there and then just be like, hey, here's a specific amount of time that you can have with people. So the big companies don't be like, we want 4 hours of your time, and then that completely
But
chokes.
I think ESA is treading into water that they've never treaded into before either. They're like, here you go. Their ESA used to be, okay, we're at the LA Coliseum where these days you need you want a 20 by 20 space. Okay, you can go to South Hall. Here's your 20 by 20 space, lot 44B, and
here's a
this is what you're allowed to bring and not allowed to bring. And then they're done. Like the people show up and they set their stuff up. Like if you got a huge booth, like again, which is not the people that we're talking about, like but I just don't know how this would work. And then based on what you just read to me of like where the media would like us would hopefully be lucky enough and get access a week earlier, you've already eliminated that crowd, which is the crowd that they really want.
Yeah,
because media is what they want. It's not what the ESA wants, but it's what the game publishers and developers want. They want the media.
Yeah, I think people underestimate, you know, like how important it is for like media to get their hands on and spend time with the game. Because yeah, everyone could just go to like PlayStation's YouTube channel and watch the video, but the fact that there's like 50,000 people attending E3 and each of them will then make content from, you know, like a quick mention to like a full like hour video on it. That's like 50,000 different like channels and avenues for their game to be exposed as opposed to just being like in a sizzle reel. So the ESA, I would imagine ESA would probably have done their homework. That's why they sat out last year of just like, okay, let's see what people do. Let's see what Jeff Keighley's doing. Now that Jeff Keighley's like their rival, you know, let's see what the Guerrilla Collective did and Kind of Funny and like all the shows that basically tried to cobble together like, you know, press events or whatever that were multi-platform and covered a bunch of different games. And then ESA then will just steal what was good, you know, copy what was good and cut out what was bad. But that's a tall order, especially, you know, there's no incentive for, you know, Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo to jump on board on this.
Well, even on the surface too, what some people fail to realize is like you see like the Ubisoft booth or you see the Activision booth on pictures or on the vloggers or doing the camera work on the show floor of E3 where it's like, you know, you get to see like where there's like a bunch of multiplayer set up for the next Call of Duty game, or you can get some, you know, hands on with them and the new Assassin's Creed mission, or they had the big Just Dance stage. But then, and again, like it's not like it's like me sitting there saying, "Oh, look what I can do." It's we get to go in a different area, sometimes completely off of the show floor, or in an enclosed area upstairs of a booth, and we get to play the game with the game director sitting in the same room, talking to us, telling us what his thought process is, or what's going on, or why something is built like that, or we get to ask a question versus the Disneyland, Disney World style experience of turntables of we just want people to get their hands on with this new weapon in Rainbow Six. Like just to see if they like it or don't like it. There's two different worlds that are going on there, and as you can tell based on the bullet points that Michael read earlier, the ESA is still trying to accomplish those two different worlds. And like, do I need to go through the ESA to get to Focus Home Interactive? I don't anymore.
Yeah, no, a ton of companies, you don't have to go through any of that stuff. So that's basically just their pitch, though, is just like, their pitch is just, we are the ESA, we're E3. Work with us and put stuff to 3 days. I actually, like, after last year, Dave, like, remember we were excited about, like, oh, there's potential for, like, gaming news every single week, and we got that for, like, a little bit. Not as well as we wanted. There was still, like, a week.
There was, like, a 4-week run. It was like E3 week to, like, the middle of July, and that was it.
Yeah, and then it just stopped, and we're just like, why didn't they spread this stuff out further enough? And so it wasn't perfect last year, but I kind of missed just having everything in a 3-day period, like during E3 or that week, because E3 is a full week. Like the show floor is open for 3 days, but that is a full week of like news. I kind of missed that, and I feel like some stuff still got buried, even though they got to spread out a little bit. And
hopefully maybe the ESA can help make it not buried. But if I'm any of these big publishers like Microsoft, Ubisoft, like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'll go the week before or the week after.
You
know, I'll announce it during ESA during E3 when everybody's paying attention to the gaming world and say, hey, come back next week, you know, like, and we'll talk about this.
Yeah, and you can do that by just hopping on their hashtag on Twitter, you know, like, you don't need to pay them 6 figures to be like, hey, tune in next week.
You send out a press release. You talk to some of the people that are, you know, with a little bit of B-roll, and you got the super fans that are sitting there ripping, you know, like ripping a blurry screenshot apart of like, oh, what are they going to show? Like,
yeah. So I wonder how many people will do that during like E3 of just like, hey, during E3 week, we're not a part of this, but here's our press release. Here's like, we're going to hop on the E3 news hashtag and then just
pay for the ads to roll during the Twitch.
Yeah. It'd be way cheaper.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, with all of that said, once we get to whatever you want to call this, herd immunity, vaccinated people, not vaccinated, once we get back to our new normal, there's still, like I said this before, nothing can or will replace hands-on impressions. Like, yeah, and those will still exist. How those hands-on impressions will or won't be delivered going forward might change, but I'm all for it, man. If I could take a half day at work and come home and you know, get the opportunity to check out the newest Call of Duty or check out the newest expansion to Borderlands or something like that, and do it from the comfort of my home versus, you know, trying to arrange a flight to get, you know, 2 days off of work in a row to fly out there and then come home and fly. You know, I'm 6'4", damn it. Sitting on a plane's not comfortable. Like,
it's not comfortable. So let's just hop into the new thing before we talk about this, because who knows? Again, this is all the stuff that was from like their pitch deck. So like they could end up like next week after going to all the publishers being like, no one wanted to join our party, and then just E3 2021's canceled, and then they'll try in person next year. Let's move on to Dave's favorite game. We have to. We always have to talk about this.
What's gonna happen first? Anthem 2, Anthem 2.0, or Uncharted movie?
Uncharted movie, hands down. All right.
2 weeks ago, you wouldn't have said that.
It's got a new release date. It's like the 7th release date. It's happening. Jason Schreier out of Bloomberg now revealed that it is make or break week for Anthem. So this week, it sounds like the developers for Anthem, BioWare, which the team working on Anthem Next, which is like their reboot of Anthem, is about 30 people right now. So those 30 people are going to make a internal presentation to the heads of EA. And EA then will decide whether the work justifies putting a full team on Anthem Next, or if they'll just cut ties with Anthem and just say it's not happening. So that is apparently happening this week. EA won't confirm this, but Jason Schreier usually has multiple sources before he posts a story. So this is pretty much confirmed. This is make or break week for Anthem Next on whether they will continue and try and, you know, pull a No Man's Sky or Final Fantasy 14. So
Anthem is 2 years old in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And you're making a decision this week as if you're going to make new development on it, like if you're going to put more bodies on it, which means that on a perfect scenario, maybe because there's certain things in place already, like your Anthem next comes out, your great 2.0 patch or whatever comes out in July. Like, yes, it's too late.
Well, even then, like, they've only had 30 people working on it since they announced that they're
that's what I'm saying.
It. Yeah.
The system's there, and you might be able to tune some quality of life things or do some stuff. But like one of the examples everybody uses before is Division's like patch 8 point whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was, and this is going back to Division 1. That Division had done this patch, and everybody points to that. Like, that was the turning point for the Division franchise, that patch. But there was 7 other patches before it that built to that patch. Like, there are no patches that are building to this in Anthem. You tried for 3 or 4 months or 6 months maybe, and then you went radio silent for the last 18 months. And now the reported thing is that now this week we're going to decide if we're going to continue development on it. I'm like, no. Sorry.
Especially they were planning some big changes. Like, they were going to redo the loot system.
Not.
Well, no, that's the thing that sucks. So, who I feel bad for are the 30 people that have been working hard as hell probably for the last year.
On nothing.
Yeah, just for it not to happen, you know? Like, I'm sure they've made tweaks and changes, but it's always been like, all right, as soon as, EA gives us like 70 more people, we'll go full gear. So
because EA can't charge for this.
No, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's like,
so
EA
like
never said...
They've got to present this this team has to present this to the EA board of how that they can put the money forward for this, that there will not be an instantaneous recoup on investment, a return on investment, and that what is it going to be in this game that would re-engage your player base and have them eventually generate revenue.
Yeah, because EA isn't in it for, like, getting respect back. Like, like EA does not care if they have a dead game. So EA would only be in this for the profits. I just don't... I feel real bad for those 30 people.
I do too. They had a really good idea and concept, and I've said it 100 times, but you don't, whether you did or didn't want to be Destiny, Division, Rainbow Six, or whatever, like in terms of a games as a service, you had a blueprint of what not to do, and when you hit a fork in the road of, you knew, okay, one company went this way, that failed. One company went this way, that failed. Let's just go that way. It's okay. We won't fail. Like, yeah, you will.
Yeah,
and you did.
And the crazy thing about this is just like they took 30 people from BioWare and put them on this, and then BioWare's working on the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. They're working on Dragon Age 4. I think there's like 2 other BioWare projects that might be rumored to be worked on, and the idea that like these developers are like, okay, cool, this is what we have, and then EA is going to be like, all right, let's pull more people from the developers and split more people from BioWare and split them even further. Or spread them out over like multiple projects. It doesn't seem plausible. And even then, like the player base was never there for Anthem. Like, I know Anthem sold good day one, but that player count dropped so much, and I don't know if there's a justification to even... You have Anthem somewhere on one of your systems. Like, I don't know if there's even much... Even if they said like, hey, Anthem's pretty cool now that it's been fixed, I don't see you downloading it and getting into it.
Not unless they show me something like completely new.
Yeah. If they're like, hey, we tweaked the loot system. Yeah. Play the story again with our new loot system isn't good enough. Like, they need to do Anthem 2 if they're going to do anything. Like, rebooting Anthem just isn't going to work. But that's when they're stuck, is because if they do Anthem 2, then they basically told everyone who bought Anthem 1, like, oh, you're fucked. Like...
Yeah, unless they do some kind of carryover progression with your Rangers or whatever.
Which won't happen.
Right.
So yeah, here's the thing. If this thing works out and EA is like, we love what this team did, we'll continue and do Anthem next, we probably won't hear about it until the summer. And
then you're going to release it in the holiday season in this plethora
I don't even
of
think
stuff that's coming out. Like,
no, I don't even think they could release it this holiday. They only have had a team of 30 people working on it.
Yeah.
If they put a full team on this, it's probably a year out.
Kick off our 3rd-year anniversary of our game that died after 18 weeks. Like,
Yeah, no, we're looking at like the 4th or 5th year anniversary for this game to come out. But the other end of that is if EA is like, oh, we're not going to do this, then we just won't hear Anthem ever talked about again. Like, there's not going to be
at this point in time. Like, I'm fine with take what you learned, like the graphics, the mechs, that like the flying system that you had in there, and do something different. Like, if you want to do another games as a service, like, I'm fine with you trying it. Take what you learned from it, take your loss, and move on.
I'm sure there's things they learned from Anthem that they can apply to their Mass Effect reboot, like when they return to Mass Effect, which they are. So, like, there's probably stuff they can at least take from Anthem and move forward, but, like, Anthem's just going to be one of those things where potentially it's just the thing that their EA's asked about all the time and they just never have an answer for, unless someone on a financial earnings call, like, asks them, how's Anthem running?
Great.
Yeah, girl, we still have 30.
We have more people working on the game than we have people playing, but it's going great.
Yeah, like, oh, we still have people working on them, and Twitter, someone announces they're leaving. Oh, we don't have anyone working on it anymore. All right, let's move on to the next bit of news. This is just real quick. So Activision Blizzard, we're in the middle of like everyone releasing their financial earnings or quarterly earnings.
A lot of companies ended in January. So
yeah. So the news that came out from the recent Activision earnings call is Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 aren't coming out this year, which isn't too surprising at all. They went radio silent on Overwatch 2. Though BlizzCon's coming up in like a week or two, so maybe we'll get something, but it's not coming out this year.
Yeah, but I think that they said this stuff now to temper expectations at BlizzCon.
Yeah, so I don't know what the fuck BlizzCon's gonna be. And then
Diablo Mobile.
Yeah, which I think is already out. The CFO then also said that there's more remasters coming out, but he didn't specify what. Though we know Vicarious Visions is working on Diablo 2, which is unannounced, so we can imagine that. Though they made it sound like multiple remasters are in the works, so this is what me and Dave have been trying to figure out. Like, what the hell are they going to do, after Tony Hawk? And we know it's Diablo 2, but I don't know what else they have that they can, do. So that's Activision. Activision looks like they're just going to continue to just be in the Call of Duty and remasters business, which...
And the mobile business that they do well in. Like, they do really, really, really well in the mobile business, which is kind of crazy.
It's really boring, but it works really well for them financially. So, like, can't
because, like, they own Candy Crush, which I don't know if that's a thing anymore. But
I think it's installed on most Windows computers from, like, the start. So that's Activision's financial news. Now let's go on to Sony. So a lot of different things came out from Sony. The PS5 sold 4.5 million consoles worldwide.
In 2020.
Which
in like 7 weeks. So.
Yeah. Which puts it on par. It might be a little under of what the PS4 sold.
Everything I saw was like pretty much equal. Like the same.
Yeah. I believe Sony, they shipped 4.5 million in 2020.
Which in this situation is sold because you can't find one.
Yeah. So it's on par with what they've done before, if not maybe a little better. The 4.5 million is interesting because they pulled the Zelda basically, because Miles Morales sold 4.1 million copies, though.
It's on PS4.
It's on PS4, so I'm sure it's not that high, but like it probably has a very significant like amount of people bought Miles Morales for their PS5 because there wasn't a huge amount of PS5 games, exclusive.
Well, yeah, I mean,
PS5
it's like you
games.
go into a store and you're lucky enough to get one, and let's say you go to the store to get it, and you look on the shelf of what's there, and essentially your choice was Sackboy, Demon Souls, Spider-Man.
Yeah, and Valhalla. like those are 4 games that have box art in the store. Mm-hmm. Oh, Godfall. Can't forget about Godfall.
But I'm just saying, like, if you if grandma's in the store picking up the system for the 14-year-old boy, and she sees 5 games like this, She might, if she's at all in the know, might know what Assassin's Creed is. She knows what Spider-Man is. She doesn't know what Sackboy is. She doesn't know what Demon Souls is, and she doesn't know what Godfall is.
Yeah, Spider-Man is like the safest bet because if you're gonna get someone's like grandparent or parent to buy it, they're not gonna buy the game called Godfall because that doesn't sound great for a kid. Sackboy looks cute enough, so Sackboy probably did pretty well, though we don't have those numbers. But yeah, Demon Souls, no grandma or parent is gonna buy Demon Souls for their kid. So yeah, Spider-Man probably has a hell of an install base on a PS5.
And the same thing could be said for the PS4 owners that are getting a gift for getting something for Christmas as well. Like Spider-Man is safe, like is popular and is safe.
I'm glad it sold well, even though I knew it was gonna. I think everyone knew this was gonna sell well. But it shows that like Insomniac might have like a nice setup for themselves, or at least Sony does. I don't know how happy. Depending on how much Sony wants to milk this, how happy Insomniac would be. But like, Miles was a quick turnaround time in terms of like how long that game was developed, the size and the scope of it.
But your foundation was there again. And like, how many times can they get away with that? Like, how many times can they go to the same foundation?
They'll probably do at least one more round of proper Spider-Man game, proper Miles Morales games.
Before the people start getting annoyed with it, like, or getting annoyed is an interesting word, getting like irritated or agitated, fatigued, like of like I was talking to Johnny, a good friend of mine. He's in the chat now too, and we play games periodically, not as much as we used to, but he kind of like, I was talking to him a couple weeks ago about playing both Spider-Man and Miles back to back, and he had played and loved Spider-Man, and he was kind of waiting on Miles because he's like, did they change New York at all? I'm like, it snowed.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's not a bad thing, but I just don't
know
how many times you can go there. It's the same thing that they did kind of like, and this is exactly what we thought it was, the same thing they kind of did with Uncharted Lost Legacy. You spent a lot of time in the same area in Uncharted Lost Legacy. Yeah,
and that when the game opens up finally,
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's like, it's you're still getting an Uncharted light, Lite experience, and Miles Morales was a heavier version of light. Like,
but the thing is, at least when it comes to the Spider-Man IP, that's what people expect. People expect New York, and they can probably run that for a couple more times if they want to do the cycle. They can probably get away with running a 3 and then a Miles and maybe a 4 and a Miles.
Yeah, I would love to see more games like this. The 40 to, I guess at this point in time, the $40 to $60 price point range of the 8 to 12 hour experiences. Like Miles Morales, I haven't gone back to it yet, but the medium games that I'm hearing are like, okay, even if you do everything, it's 12 hours versus like, I've seen some people like talking about Valhalla and they're like 89 hours in. I'm like, I know, like I can't do it.
Yeah. And that's basically what I've been looking for, like going through my backlog of just like, okay, that game's 13 hours on howlongtobeat.com. No, I'm going to go play the game that's 7 hours.
Yeah. Well, Immortals, like when I look back at it, I was like 25 hours. I'm like, oof. And then it's like, I feel guilty myself sometimes when I'm like, my palate's not diverse enough. But when I try to diversify my palette and play a game like Immortals, it's like 30-hour commitment. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, it could be a lot. But I'm sure this is promising, though, when they see like, oh, we can put out a 4 to 8 hour Spider-Man game and we can sell how many copies? Like that they're probably going to run with that. The last bit
then you have a company like Nintendo come out and say that that game that we ported, that everybody that we ported over and just made it made it run on a Switch that everybody was like giving us crap about. Yeah, we sold 9 million copies of that.
Yeah. We sold Mario 35 copies. Yeah.
Mario 35th anniversary, or Animal Crossing sold, what did they say, 31 million copies?
Yeah.
And then like now we've seen numbers this week of Red Dead 2 is in above 25 mil, and GTA is above 150 mil in its life.
Yep. And GTA has 2 more platforms to come out on PS5 and Xbox Series.
Why would you bring out GTA 6 at this point in time if you're selling an average of 10 million copies of a game a year of something, and you're going to put it on 3 platforms?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that they're selling that game for $20.
The exclusivity, though, like you're seeing, we've talked about this before, and I love Sony. Everybody knows that I love Sony, and they make great games, and their games make money. So, but you look at potential to make more money. and not sitting there saying that Sony needs to make more money, but GTA sold that much because it was a good game and it was on everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And they added new features when they brought it to a new platform.
Yeah. Eventually, with 5 million PS5s out there, what's the last number we heard for PS4? 125 mil?
Something crazy like that. Let me look it up while you're talking.
Eventually, if there's 130 people that own, I'm obviously taking, and scaling the number down. If 130 people own a PlayStation system, and then you show them Miles Morales, like you go to that person and say, "Do you want to buy this? It's $50." And yeah, your attach rate might be high, but it's not 50%. If it was 50%, you would be at 50 million.
Yeah.
There comes a certain point in time where you're capping your sales because you're not available on other things. It's so hard to tell. Like, people have been looking at like profit wise or the revenue wise. Like Sony generated 8.4 billion in the quarter, and everybody's like saying it's smashing Microsoft, and then analysts are coming out and saying yes, it is beating Xbox, but not by as much as you think it is. And now at retail, with the retail price, Sony is losing money on the PS5, which we all speculated they were going to do.
Yeah.
The software sales are making up for it. I don't think as an example, and I hate to always make it a Sony versus Microsoft thing, but revenue is important, but hearing like, oh, it's up this much over last year. Well, no shit. You sold a system.
Yeah.
But I don't think Microsoft is losing money on Xbox Series S sales. I don't think that they're taking a loss.
Oh, on S?
On the S's.
No, okay, yeah, no, I don't think
the X's
they are.
Maybe the X's maybe, or they are, but they, like it can be offset. Like I care about profits, and unfortunately, Sony will share their PlayStation profits because they're great, and they're holding that entire company above water. PlayStation is holding the Sony corporation above water with how much money it's generating and profits it's generating. But keep in mind, Microsoft can go to Sony's company and overpay and pay in cash and purchase Sony and not even blink an eye. All of Sony, not just the PlayStation division.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but not possible. But yeah.
So I meant like, you'll hear about Microsoft's profits as a Microsoft whole. You're not hearing about Sony's profits as a whole, because they're shit, except for PlayStation.
Yeah, you do hear about their profits, but man, do they brush over that stuff in the call. Like, their earnings call will focus heavily on PlayStation, because like their cell phone business isn't doing well. Their TV business is up compared to what it used to be. But right. Yeah, the thing that's that's why a couple years ago, there was like the rumors that like they were going to spin off the PlayStation division, because they were tired of the PlayStation numbers kind of being brought down by the rest of the company losing money. But Sony's in a really good place though right now, especially like PlayStation's holding them down. TVs, especially with like all the new everyone wanting to buy
are
new
getting
TVs,
getting better.
Yeah, and then their picture division, they've actually found a really sweet spot where, because they don't have a streaming platform, they're just selling their licenses out to other people. So like Sony's in a good spot now, which is why they brag. We're not going to hear Microsoft talk about this, because like Microsoft is like losing money potentially, but they're also a big company to where it, like when Microsoft does their earnings calls, Xbox is just a line in like all their businesses that they're like a bullet point.
It's a different business model from the gaming perspective, but people have been paying for subscription services for their computers forever.
Yeah.
Like, I pay for a subscription service for Adobe. My son pays for it for PowerPoint, Microsoft 365, or whatever it is. The stuff that we use to edit videos, the stuff that people are looking at, when we do a video on our YouTube channel, or the ability for my wife to generate the logo that she made for Digital Days. Like, that's all because we're paying, $11 a month for access to Photoshop or whatever it is on Microsoft.
That's not them. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know what it is. Adobe Photo Editor or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unrelated to them.
Yeah, but we use it like 2 or 3 times. So like, but we're giving them a certain amount of money. We use it like 2 or 3 times every 4 or 5 months, and it's like, okay, well, I'm glad we have it. Versus like, I need to update it and get a new one, and it's like it's there, and it's always going to be there, and the revenue's always going to be there. Like it's like again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Netflix or whatever, but it's like I have Netflix because I have it, and it comes out like small chunks that come out of my account, and like 3-4 months I won't watch it, and I'll consider getting rid of it, and then the next thing I know, the next week I found a show that I hadn't seen before, and I watched it for like 4 straight weeks. Like,
yeah. Well, it's basically what Microsoft's doing. Like Microsoft's losing money in the hardware. Like they're losing money hardware wise, or they're not selling.
But they've
as much
always
as
lost money hardware wise. Like even when they were selling PCs.
Yeah, but like 360 wise, they were killing it. So they're willing to bleed a little bit because
it's truly a marathon for them though. Like what their revenue stream is truly a marathon.
Yeah, they're trying to find different ways to get into people's homes. And they already have work computers. They already have personal computers, like their Windows. So they're trying to apply like their Windows ideology into the gaming division, just because it's like the gaming division isn't as profitable as they would like, and they see the window of like, let's just do what we do with Office, and let's do what we do with Windows, and let's apply that to the gaming division. Doesn't matter how much we lose hardware wise, because we'll get into people's monthly subscriptions and. We'll do things that way. Like, I'm sure Microsoft, like, as much as we talk about like the console war, or people like to get into fanboy wars, Sony's happily doing what they're doing by selling hardware, and Microsoft's happy doing what they're doing. Just because Microsoft's such a big company that it doesn't matter if one of their divisions isn't doing as well.
Yeah, but high revenue, just to be clear, high revenue does not equal high profits.
Yeah, so if you look at
and profits is what matters.
Yeah, like
profits is what matters. Money in your pocket, like that. Money in the company's pocket, like that's what matters. Pay your bills. This is what you have left over.
Yeah, well, it looks like just some numbers like from Sony. It's just revenue increased 40% to $8.4 billion. Partly driven by PS5 sales, and then the operating profit is up 50% to $763 million. So like you kind of see a difference in like what those numbers mean. Sony's doing well. Microsoft probably is doing okay, not as well as they would want to do. Especially like we talked about last week on how Google's willing to pull the plug on something if it's not working. And cut ties if they just feel
so is Microsoft.
Exactly. Microsoft is the same way, which means Microsoft does see like light at the end of the tunnel in terms of like, okay, we can get through this hardship and then figure it out. So
we've both have been hard on both companies for not releasing, like next gen exclusive titles, and like Sony just delayed one of theirs. Like Halo. People are going to be surprised at what the effect that Halo will have on Microsoft's bottom line this fall.
If it's good,
like, I don't even think it has to be great. Like, I think that you will see.
Yeah, no, it has to be Halo 5 and Halo 4.
You will see a surge in Game Pass subscriptions because the new Halo is on the platform. You will see a surge in like, what's a bad sales figure for you for Halo though? Like, what's a bad, like, what would you think would be, like, the worst-case scenario for Halo Infinite?
Ooh.
Like a 50% decline from Halo 5?
Yeah. I'm trying to see.
That's still 3 million copies.
Which I'm going to go with, okay, so Halo 5 sold 5 million copies.
Okay, so 2.5 million copies.
Yeah, I think that would be bad for one of their marquee franchises.
Okay, so a 50% decline in Halo 5 or Halo Infinite sales, yes, that would be devastating based on the budget, how much it cost Halo. So if they sell, let's say they sell 2 million copies of the game outright for $70, okay? Mm-hmm. How many people get Game Pass because Halo Infinite's on there?
See, you could go with that, but that's if it sells 2 million copies. We would need them to tell us the increase in Game Pass subscribers that month for us to like determine any sort of success for Halo. That we like your success for Halo is very much like we need to know the numbers for Game Pass and see how much it increased because of Halo. Like when they announce like Halo sales, it's going to be Game Pass sale, or they're not going to talk about sales numbers.
I think that they will say how many copies it sold if it's good. If they sell like 3 million copies in the first month, like you'll find out that they sold 3 million copies and we had a 1.5 million increase in Game Pass subscriptions in the month of November.
Yeah, I think they would just go with the Game Pass numbers.
Well, they're already trending at 1 million. They're trending right now at 1 million new Game Pass subscribers per month.
Yeah, they're on the upwards trajectory with that.
So I feel like if that trend continues at 1 million new members, I don't think it's crazy in the month of November to see that number triple. So the month of November, they get 3 million new subscribers, or 3.5 million new subscribers.
Depending on like how many numbers they are before that and how many promotions that they run. If anything, I see Microsoft is doing the same thing that we see other developers do. Where like this many people played Halo, but they don't give you like what that means in terms of
because it's also free to play.
The multiplayer, yes.
Right, but they'll still say like this many people signed into Halo this week.
Yeah, and we won't know
they
what
will
that
say
means.
that. Yeah. Like they 100% will say that.
Yeah.
So, but I just like it's just interesting. Like in terms of finding Halo's success, you will not be able to point to NPD numbers for Halo success because of the multiplayer aspect of it, because of the seasonal aspect of it, because of the Game Pass aspect of it, because of it being on multiple platforms. Everybody's like, oh, look, Last of Us sold 7 million copies. Okay. You can only buy it one way.
Yeah. And that's going to frustrate fanboys because like that's going to be fuel for fanboys and it's going to frustrate fanboys, because people will be able to point to like the success of a PlayStation property and then point to like the sales on an Xbox property. And it's gonna be like, well, the story's a little bit more complicated on the Xbox side.
If you log in January, or if you look at Steam concurrent users or whatever, or if they can even track it, because I don't even know if it's going to be on Steam or whatever, but if you can see how many people are playing in January, February, and March Halo multiplayer, like that's where the success is going to come from. Yes, like again, for the 100th time, Last of Us sold batshit crazy. God of War sold batshit crazy. Spider-Man sold crazy. But how many people are going back and continually still playing Spider-Man? How many people are buying seasonal content in Spider-Man? How many people are buying different skins in Spider-Man?
Well, that's like two companies with completely different like models for how they're doing things, and it's great that we have the companies not competing at each other in like copycat scenarios. But
you're starting to see some of it on Twitter. I saw some of it this week after I saw it last week. They're like, where's Sony's FPS? Like, where's Sony's shooter?
Yeah. And Sony's answer is, we don't need it. We have our stuff, And to be honest, like Microsoft, if Halo doesn't hit, like the shooter genre is taken up on PC, every platform has their thing.
Yeah.
All right. So the last bit of news, which I feel is the heist of the century. Embracer Group, aka THQ Nordic, has purchased Gearbox for roughly $1.3 billion. Like, it's not a straight up $1.3 billion. It's like mixed up with stock options and all that stuff. But if they hit certain goals within 6 years, it can hit $1.3 billion. Holy shit. Randy Pitchford finessed the hell out of the Embracer Group. No offense, like, I know people love Gearbox because of the Borderlands franchise, but this doesn't include Borderlands. 2K came out and said, we'll still work with Gearbox on the Borderlands IP because they have like first dibs on publishing.
Fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I own you. Like, again, a broad example. Like, I own Michael Swick Incorporated. But that game that you made that made you great, you're going to still give to somebody else to publish.
Yeah. Because they were a smaller company back then. You're a smaller company, when Borderlands came out, so they signed a contract. We see that all the time, it's like Insomniac,
but usually when Gearbox is purchased, they don't make Borderlands anymore. 2K has somebody else make Borderlands.
Which 2K has had that done before.
Or they're like, we didn't see another Ratchet until Sony and Insomniac like made up.
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those things where we just didn't do it. Yeah.
I'm just amazed about how much Gearbox was able to get. 1.3 billion. Their portfolio, like.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why the Battleborn thing came out so fast. Like they were trying to get money off the table to make them more desirable. Like they were like they might have been looking at the Battleborn servers being open still as like a financial draw on the company, which it may or may not have been. But it's kind of like one of the, like when a team, like when a sports team is trying to get sold, like, oh, like why did the Florida Marlins dump $100 million in payroll? Oh, somebody else wanted to buy them and they didn't want to have $100 extra million in payroll.
They didn't want to have like a chart with a red line going down. So they're like, just cut that. So like their portfolio is iffy on Borderlands because 2K has like some sort of first rights or the IP for that. But the wording on it seems like maybe there was a way for like them to get Borderlands back. Brothers in Arms, which I feel like they haven't done anything with in a while. Homeworld, which I don't know if Homeworld 3 ever came out, and Duke Nukem. That is the portfolio that they got for $1.3 billion. And so I'm not the biggest Borderlands fan. I enjoyed Borderlands 1. I have a bunch of friends that like Borderlands as a franchise. But the chart for Borderlands in terms of quality from 1 to 3 isn't going up. You know, like it isn't, you know, on a green trajectory going.
They're a publisher as well, Michael. Gearbox is a publisher also.
They are a publisher. They publish Godfall. They published a couple games, but none of them have been hits. Yeah. But the thing that with like Borderlands, like I don't understand how they got this much money because like when I look at Borderlands, I see the deal
with Borderlands must be really good. Like in terms of like even the company is still desirable. Like I don't even like speculating here. Like is it a 70-30 split that, you know, 2K gets 70% and Gearbox gets 30% because 2K is paying the bill to publish the game, and you know, but now like there has to be something. Like why is THQ purchasing Gearbox for that much money if they're not gonna if and when Borderlands 4 is a thing that they're not gonna like there must be some statistical data that shows that it's worth it.
Or they have a cool ass game in development that Embracer or whatever THQ saw and were like, that could be huge, and decided to put this money down. But like if you look at like the stuff they've done, it's just like, so from going Borderlands 1, 2, and 3, I feel like there's been like a dip in terms of like quality from 1 to 2 to 3. Though 3 probably is a little bit better than 2, but like I feel like it was a significant drop off from 1 to 2. Outside of Borderlands, like Battleborn failed miserably. The Homeworld remaster apparently came out in 2015. I completely forgot. Then you have Duke Nukem Forever, because they own Duke Nukem, dead.
Garbage, yeah.
Yeah. Brothers in Arms, they haven't done anything with since 2008. And then they have, you know, Aliens Colonial...
I don't even know what that game is.
Then you have, like, Aliens Colonial Marines, which was a trash fire. They don't own that, but that... If you look at the games they've developed, like, I don't see how this deal works out this way.
Unless... Embracer wants them to make something.
It would have
like
to
it's
be.
something
They've
Embracer
been
owns,
IPs
right? Something
like
Embracer
crazy.
owns or buys now that they think that if you know Gearbox has the talent to do, and they want them to make it, and maybe they tried to come to some publishing agreement or IP agreement and they couldn't, and Embracer said, "Fine, how about we just do this much and we just tell you what to do."
It would have to be, but I'm like looking at like their library of games, and I'm just like they have bought a lot of stuff, but like I don't think they've bought anything that's like, hell, they can do something amazing with that. I mean, but Embracer also doesn't seem
They'll take all of their properties and put them in the Borderlands world.
But they'd have to work with 2K and then split costs.
Right.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Like exactly what's going on with this.
Remember the Conan franchise? Like, how much did that sell for? Wasn't it like that company that made Conan or whatever it was?
It was like 200. It sold more than Insomniac. If I'm not mistaken. It's just crazy.
Is Conan a better game than Borderlands?
But they don't own Borderlands. That's the thing. It's like, so like when we're talking about like.
But okay, if 2K gives Borderlands to somebody else, like it's gonna be like the Batman Arkham thing. Like, oh, there's great Batman Arkham games. Don't play that Arkham game. That's not Rocksteady Arkham.
I don't
like I don't the pre-sequel. I don't think Gearbox made, right?
No, that was 2K had.
And people trashed the hell out of that game.
Yeah, they did. But this is like when I saw the news and saw how much, I was just completely like, how? Is Ted Price, did he spit out his coffee that morning when he saw how much they were sold for and how much he probably could have got? But the weird thing about Embracer is like they like, you know, like they haven't really done anything with THQ Nordic. Like I guess THQ Nordic is under them. They haven't done a ton in terms of like just doing remasters. So they haven't done any major moves. Those have been successful. They bought Saber Interactive, which I you know, there's like a AA like good studio. You know, they still own Volition, and Volition hasn't produced anything in a long time since Agents of Mayhem. Flying Wild Hog, I feel like it's been a couple years since they produced stuff. So like I guess this company's just fine paying money and keeping studios alive without putting pressure of like releasing something, which could be good for Gearbox because I feel like they've had so many
the Borderlands definitely feel rushed, and Battleborn definitely felt rushed. So was it 2K rushing them? Was it them? Was the contract rushing them? Was it themselves rushing them?
Yeah,
like that's what, you know, whether we like it or not, like that's what these companies purchasing, you know, like Microsoft purchasing Bethesda means that maybe Bethesda doesn't have to rush as much.
Yeah. So like maybe this will bring out the best in Gearbox because Gearbox, you know, at one point, at least with Borderlands franchise, has been good. Everything else they've done has been bad. And maybe since Randy Pitchford is like a controversial figure in gaming, maybe it's good that he has a boss now in terms of like someone now can tell him like, shut up or don't do anything stupid. Stop doing magic tricks at PAX.
Or get rid of him.
Yeah, they could get rid of him. And that could be beneficial to the company. Or maybe because he has someone to answer to, he'll work a little bit better or like stay inside the lines and do stuff. But yeah, this was a crazy headline to me. And companies continue to get bought up. I feel like Embracer is just setting themselves up to make a deal with like a Microsoft or a Sony. Like they're getting their like portfolio ready, and just hoping like Amazon with their streaming service.
They bought like a really beat up car, and they're like, okay, now we have a new engine and a new interior and a new hood and a new trunk. Like, oh, we're worth a lot more money now. Like,
yeah, they're gonna basically just go to they're gonna go to like one of the companies, slap their car and be like, look at all this that we got here. You know, like they're going to present themselves to Game Pass and be like, we have 1,000 IP. Like, do you want in on this? Or they're going to go to Amazon like, oh, we have enough games for 1,000 channels on Amazon's streaming service. You know, if Stadia is looking for a third-party partner.
I think the thing that's like, that's hard to imagine, like when a lot of people see stuff like this, like if for some reason Gearbox is able to make a Borderlands 4 and it's good,
yeah,
they'll make their money back.
There's a lot of money they gave, though.
I know, but I'm just like in terms of, again, talking about profits.
Yeah.
Of, you know, like they'll.
Just
if you get the next GTA or the next Fortnite, if you get it, like in there, there's a lot of what ifs, but if you get it and it hits, like you'll make your money back. Like I'd be curious, like how much, I haven't dug into it, but like how much money is Valorant producing?
Yeah, though they're owned by League of Legends people, so Valorant could lose money.
No, I know, but it's not. Like, I mean, I'm saying it's not. So, like, and it's just fascinating because the worth of, like, a lot of times you see, and again, I equate some stuff to sports, is you see contracts in sports of rewarding the player for what they've done or rewarding the player for what they're going to do. Like the Tigers are in that, close to home for me. They're in that situation with Miguel Cabrera. He won the Triple Crown, the highest batting average, RBIs, and home runs in a season. Like he won all three of those things. The contract that he makes now as a 37-year-old man that needs a wheelchair to get to first base is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he got paid because of what he did when he was 31 years old. Gearbox has value because of what they've done and the potential to do it again.
Yeah. I see that, but then I also then look at what they've done, and I see Alien Colonial Marines, I see Battleborn, I see Duke Nukem Forever, and I'm just like, how?
If they release another game that's half as successful as Borderlands 1, it's a successful purchase.
Yeah. It could be successful. We'll just have to see. It's just crazy to me. I just feel like some people who were purchased last year are now like yelling at like their accountant or their CFO.
Well, and I think that there's a huge difference between purchasing. Okay, like and for some reason, like there's been a whole bunch of sports analogies running in my head this week, but there's a huge difference between purchasing studios that are already established and built. They have their four walls, they have their systems in place, they have their engines or whatever they do to make their games, and then making another studio bigger.
Yeah.
Okay? So expansion is bad. Addition can be good. Expansion has the potential to be great if your depth is good enough. You're diluting your talent pool. Mm-hmm. Expansion is having an established company, expanding an already established company can dilute your pool. Bringing things in that are in addition to your company. Randy Pitchford already knows how to run Gearbox. Whether you like it or don't, he knows what he's doing. And does his company make money? Did he just sell his company for $1.2 billion? Oh,
yeah. He can turn a profit, but in terms of like...
To run a business, he knows what he's doing. So
just keep that man away from...
Yes, like as a person, he's probably terrible, or he is terrible. He's a vile human being. But as a business owner, he makes money, which is what has to happen in the business world. Yeah.
He's probably a good head of a studio in terms of profitability for him and his higher ups. Yeah,
and like you said, maybe somebody else to answer to will help him become, be even better. Of like, hey, you really can't take that risk because it's my money now, not yours.
Yeah.
But the chain of command at Gearbox is established. Will it get tweaked? Yeah, it will get tweaked. But the chain is there. That chain now links to something else versus you trying to take a link and make it bigger.
Yeah.
So, like, there's all those things of, like, where we've heard of these teams that get stretched too far. Platinum Games stretch themselves too far.
Yeah.
Would it have been better for Platinum to buy another studio and have them make the games? Maybe.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like that this value comes from. This is why ZeniMax is worth $7 billion, because of multiple studios. I mean, if it's $1.2 billion for one studio, how many studios did ZeniMax have? 6? 7?
13.
Yeah, 13. So in theory, if the value for Gearbox is $1 billion, they bought 13 studios for $7 billion. Like,
yeah, but that's where like my brain breaks of terms of like I still think Embracer overpaid for this studio, but I guess we'll have to find out in a couple years when they release a game, or when Embracer just releases a game in general that isn't a remaster.
Yeah. Yep.
Because there's not a back catalog of games for them to remake with Gearbox.
Somebody has Embracer's ear. That Embracer thinks whoever their CEO or their board thinks is a very smart individual, and has told him in 2028 this is gonna work.
Yeah.
But for now, I need $7 billion.
Yeah, I feel like this ends with Embracer selling to a bigger company like Tencent, of just being like, hey, Tencent, you want in the gaming market? Look at all this stuff we bought, regardless of the quality. Just the sheer volume of numbers. They're just like
library we have, the library that we grant you access to.
Yeah, because Tencent is into streaming. Amazon's into streaming. Microsoft's into streaming. Those are like 3 companies that they can be like, hey, if you want this, though I don't know what price Embracer would have to value anything if they sell as a whole, if they spent 1.5 billion on like a Gearbox, because now they're so deep into it, they probably would want to offer more money than Bethesda got. So there's that. That's all I have for the news.
So Glorious War just says the difference is that Gearbox is a much more successful studio than the Bethesda studios. No,
not at all.
Doom, it just destroys all of Borderlands. Like, just like
Elder Scrolls, Fallout.
Like, I'm sorry, like, but that's the perception, though. Like, okay, Glorious, like, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but you maybe enjoyed Borderlands better than somebody that enjoyed Doom or Fallout, and the perception is that that's a better game because of me playing it. But from a business standpoint, like, Doom is ridiculous.
Yeah, I would say Arcane is better. Tango's smaller. Machine Games, I could see Glorious War. He named 3 more studios. Bethesda. I would say the Wolfenstein is a big name compared to Borderlands in terms of legacy. But I would say, like, if you want to compare Gearbox to like Tango or Machine Games, yeah, I feel like that's an argument, but that's not why you buy Bethesda.
But at the same time, Glorious, like, Gearbox is known for Borderlands, but Embracer didn't even get Borderlands.
Yeah, or at least as of now, they don't have Borderlands. We don't know like the contract stuff, but yeah, as of now, it's still 2K. So, and when you take Borderlands out of the equation, Gearbox does not have a great history in terms of stuff outside of Borderlands.
I enjoyed Doom more than Borderlands, but I would say it sold more on a franchise level. So you're saying that Borderlands as a franchise sold more than Doom?
Or are you saying Doom as a franchise sold more than Borderlands?
Because I'm sure Doom trounced it.
Yeah. We can move on for the news and do what we're playing.
All right. So for me, I ended up getting a little sick earlier in the week. I actually took like a day and almost pretty much 2 days off of work. And then, so I was messing around with some stuff, and I've decided to kind of mess around with like the mobile stuff, and as well as wanting to try to find better ways to play games on my phone, whether it's Game Pass or Remote Play. So I picked up a Razer Kishi, which is it's a controller that clicks onto the side of your phone. So like, it connects via USB-C. It doesn't have its own battery. It uses the battery from your phone. It's got triggers. It's got 2 triggers on it on each side. It's got a D-pad and touchable, thumbstick buttons. It's like $80. And I really liked it so far. Like, I used it a little bit on Game Pass, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't really had a chance to mess with it more. It's a little annoying. You have to take your case off. I have to take the case off my phone to use it, but it's relatively portable. It folds up and clicks together really nice, and it's small. And then I downloaded Call of Duty Mobile, and I played that on like a Saturday morning for a couple hours. I got to like level 8 or 9 on their Battle Pass like pretty quickly. What I didn't realize is that Call of Duty Mobile has like an auto fire system. That once you're aiming and you're over a target, the gun just fires. Like, there's not a fire button on the mobile version of the game. Okay. There's a tap to ADS, or you can like move the screen, but the touch controls actually worked really well. You get a bunch of like free to play ads that pop up in your screens in front of you. Like, here, check out this character, check out this skin, buy this, which is obvious because it's a free to play game. But I was actually pretty impressed with it. And the thing I was actually the most impressed about is it didn't drain my battery. It didn't have that much of a pull on my battery. Yeah, I was on Wi-Fi, but it didn't pull on my battery very much. But it was fun in small little, 5 or 6 minutes. I could definitely see myself playing it at the end of like a lunch break or something like that. But I didn't hate it. It was nice to play a game on my phone that wasn't like a touch 3 game or match 3 game. But there's definitely there's some things to it there. So if you are somebody that plays a lot of mobile games that maybe use touch really well, or that a mobile game that uses a controller really well, that I could download to my phone. I like Game Pass, but I can't really play that like on 5G. It doesn't really work too well. I haven't found very many games that work really well with it. Make some mobile game recommendations for me. I've heard like there's a Diablo mobile that's pretty good. Somebody was telling me. I've never really gotten into Diablo before, but if there's anything, just tweet them at me at Good Dave Hunt. I would love to check them out. I also played I played Division 2 with the Resident Evil update, or the Resident Evil global event, and their next gen update where they did 60 frames per second in 4K. The loading times, Division 2 always had some rough loading times, but the loading times are much better. The frame rate is nice. It just flows a little bit better. It seems like it's easier just to climb over stuff. That could just be me getting used to more things being 60 frames on PS5. And then the global event that they did with Resident Evil was kind of cool. So there's actually this thing when you're shooting in the game where if you do not kill them with a headshot, they reanimate. Like they come back to life, and then you have to kill them with a headshot. You can also kill them if you body shot them and they're on the ground. You can walk up to them and shoot them in the head, and the head explodes. So for like a 1 or 2 week or 10-day like apparel event, I think it's enough to kind of mess with the gameplay and change it up a little bit, and you just earn interesting cosmetics for playing the game. Like there was probably some things that I don't understand Resident Evil references of, just some of the clothing and some of the reference. You get a bunch of different arm patches for your character, some backpack dongles, backpack trophies, some like bulletproof like RPD, like your Kevlar vests, and things like that. So it was fun. I forget how heavy Division 2 is with their menus though, like in terms of like having to be in the menus and go through and change things and adjust things, and the inventory management can still be a slog. And then the summit that they have, I talked about it briefly a couple months ago, but the 100 floor horde mode that they have where you're going up a skyscraper with a couple friends, like it's fun. Like I streamed it and we played it for a couple of hours and a couple nights, and I could definitely see it being something I play for like 2 or 3 hours a week, going forward. There's like a one night every other week kind of thing. And then today, Destiny 2 started a new season. So I was playing and streaming that as well. Again, you can just check out the streams, twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming. It's mostly been me. Somebody else doesn't seem to want to stream lately, but we all go through phases. So maybe there'll be something cool that comes out that gets his interest again. So a new season started today, which is a whole new level system, whole new battle pass, new activity. It's a 3-man match-made activity. It's actually going pretty good. There's a good amount of of ads, but at the same time, Destiny is always fun and interesting the first week when you're trying to figure out everything that works, and then all of a sudden you figure out what is the path of least resistance to get you to where you want to get to, and then the game gets kind of dry. So we'll have to see if this continues to work or doesn't continue to work, but there still is nothing more satisfying and fun than shooting something in the head in Destiny. So that is it that is pretty much it for what I played. I watched the Super Bowl. The game was terrible. Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl more often than LeBron James makes a free throw. And the game was, like I said, the game was bad, and the commercials were average, if not closer to bad. So
yeah, I barely watched the Super Bowl. I think I turned it on for the halftime show, and then I watched the second half, just hoping Mahomes would just do what he usually does, but he had no offensive line and like a broken toe, so it was a bad game. It was a pretty bad game. So for me, pretty light this week. I did dip more into the medium, play probably an additional 2 hours of it. As that game goes along, I love the world, the atmosphere, character design, all that stuff. But anytime I have to deal with the Mothman, the creature chasing you, I just don't want to play the game. I wish this game didn't have that aspect to it, because I just love exploring the world and figuring out their basic puzzles. The puzzles aren't great, but they're
I haven't
whatever.
I'm interested. So.
Yeah, I'm interested in the story and everything like that. But anytime the game tries to add that element of got time to run away, I'm just no. Especially that first encounter with the creature it's real bad. I hated that part of the game, because just hide over here and then just run into this corridor and then run into this corridor, and it's just, I want to like that game more than I am, but I can see why the reviews are where they're at, because it's there's good stuff in this game. I love this. I love the story. I love the world. The mechanics of being split between like the spirit world and the real world is fascinating to me. But man, when I have to deal with those sections of the game, I'm just kind of like bummed out of just like, this would be so much better if they just removed this bit of the game. Like I don't need that tension. It's not even scary. It's just, I just hate when games have you just run away from a thing. It just kind of annoys me. I made the mistake of buying NBA 2K21 on the Switch. Just because I'm like, let me try that on portable. It was on sale for like $15 or $20.
Okay.
So I bought it and I'm saying, let me just play it portable mode. I enjoyed it on the PS5. I can't play that game on portable mode. Everything's just too small. The characters are a little weird, skinny, tall, like when they shouldn't be. So that was a mistake. Because it's really hard to see what's going on in that game, in terms of like the shooting thing that comes up above the players' heads. It's just like, that is barely visible when you're playing this game. So I haven't docked it yet because I haven't docked my Switch in a long time because I don't have any ports available on my TV right now with the Xbox and the PlayStation and my Chromecast. So I've just been playing that portable and I regret picking it up. Because I for some reason I still want to play the basketball game just because it's it's a game I can turn my brain off while I play. And then you mentioned it earlier, funny enough, but Lost Legacy. I finally decided to play that. A couple hours into it, like 3 or 4 hours into it. I understand the game's only like 7-8 hours. If that. Really loving it. Chloe was one of my favorite characters. I was kind of disappointed that Chloe like isn't really in Uncharted 4. Loving that because it's just more Uncharted, and I forgot how much I missed Uncharted, even though after Uncharted 4 I'm like, oh cool, I'm fine if this franchise never continues. And then I forgot Lost Legacy existed. Now I'm playing Lost Legacy, really enjoying it. I want to see more adventures from Chloe or some of the side characters in the Uncharted franchise. Like, I don't need Nathan Drake. I don't need Nathan Drake's daughter if they do another Uncharted game. They have so many already established cool characters that they can work with for the future of this franchise. So far I'm playing it like where I'm not using my weapon. Like, I'm trying to do everything stealth. Though I do like when you do bust out your weapon, like Nadine is kind of worthless in stealth. Like, she will not attack anybody, but if you get into a gunfight, she's like the Terminator in terms of like just shooting enemies down and taking care of people. So like if I get into a situation, I just have to shoot my gun in the air once and then Nadine gets activated and then just goes crazy and starts killing everybody. Enjoying that. Like I said, I was going through my back catalog and I was just like, okay, what games are like under 10 hours that I can get through and finally get off my backlog? So, it was between Wolfenstein and Lost Legacy, and it was like, oh, Wolfenstein's 12 hours and Lost Legacy 7 hours? Okay, I'm going Lost Legacy. And that's why I did Titanfall 2 the week prior. So I'm going to continue to do that. I don't know what my next game is. I already have Wolfenstein downloaded. And I guess I could, finish up stuff that I have in other games. But, like Ghost of Tsushima, I have a bunch of stuff. I want to restart Control, but that's another one of those games.
Did you beat Ghost?
I got close.
Okay.
Like, I'm close to the end. Yeah. But I moved it from my PS5 internal to the external drive of just like, okay.
External drive of shame.
Yeah, basically that's what I do is I just like move stuff that I really like onto the internal and then PS4 stuff.
That's the difference between you and I with the data cap. I'm just like, all right, whatever, just delete it. So.
Yeah, no, it saves time too in terms of like, because it transfers really fast from the external to the internal. So I'm just like, oh, let me just like move stuff over. I dove back into like, when I have time to kill, I'm playing Tony Hawk again, just like cleaning up little stuff and trying to beat my high scores. So I'm doing that again, just because it frustrates me. I used to be really good at that game. I'm okay at the game now, but when I look at the leaderboards, I'm like, fuck, I was trash compared to some of the scores. So I've just been kind of like grinding away at that, no pun intended, and just listening to podcasts while I do it. just because that's what 2K was. 2K was my podcast like game. Just throw my earbuds in. I can play the game on mute, and I'm kind of doing that with Tony Hawk for that. And then, so I went on a little bit of a journey yesterday just because I was off and didn't really have anything to do. For some reason, I got paranoid about like the PS3 store just shutting down one day.
I saw you tweeting about this. I'm like, what is he doing?
Yeah. So like I had my PS3. It's like just been like
Josh is rubbing off on him over like 2-year time. We need to have Josh on here because apparently like he's just rubbing off on him. So.
I didn't realize that we're like 5 years away from the 20th anniversary of the PS3, and I was like, there's no possible way they're going to keep this store alive, for much longer. Like they're not going to hit the 20th anniversary of this, because that would be a weird thing to be like, hey, it's the 20th anniversary for the PS3. We're closing the online servers and the store. They're going to kill it before that. So I was just like, okay, let me go into my PS3 download list, which is hell. It loads better than I remember it, but it was a process of just me basically not wanting to invest money in an external drive or like a new internal drive of just being like, okay, I need to make this 500 gigs work. And just delete any remaster that's on here because I'd rather play the remaster, and then just go through everything and download any game that I purchased on the PS3. That took a couple hours, and I'm not talking about like downloading stuff either, like because that was a whole other thing, because I forgot that when you download a game it doesn't install automatically. You have to click the bubble and it installs. So like I go through the store, torture myself to do all that organizing bullshit, and then I walk away for a couple hours, come back, and then I just have a bunch of fucking bubbles. And if the game is over a gig, that bubble takes a long time to like install. So
he could have been streaming, folks. You guys need to tweet at him. He could have been streaming other games.
I did preservation and took care of that because I know that day's coming. Like it has to be. Like where they're just like, hey, that gets into
the question though. Like, are they going to deny people access to content that they've paid for? That's what we've been talking about for a long time. Like, if I own those games on PS3 and I bought them and I paid for them, like, and now you're making it so I can't access my purchases.
So the PSP store closed, and the only way to get your PSP library is on a PS3.
Okay, so then a PS3 store closes.
Then the PSP is completely locked up.
Are they going to have to make an ARM on the PS4 and the PS5 store, like a different app you go into?
I'm wondering, because if you go into your PS5 library right now, there's a PS3 option. Like it lets you organize your games, PS5, PS4.
They're gonna just merge it all over there or something, or you're gonna go into some back door through the PS5 store to go into an emulation or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even if they don't hit the emulation point of just like, hey, do what you could do with the PSP and Vita, where you plug it into your PS3 and transfer your games to it. So maybe that's coming, but it was just one of those things where it's like, let me just organize my PS3.
I'm not criticizing it, but it's weird, like, because the PS2 didn't have digital content, right?
Yeah.
So
it did not.
So now you have, you're getting to the 20 years old, like, and again, from a business standpoint, like I talk about a lot, if I'm like the head of Sony's like interactive stores or whatever, I'm like, that game's 19 damn years old. What do you need it for? If you haven't played it in 18 years, you're not playing it now. But I might want to, and if you can't let me.
And that's basically, I was just like avoiding, because then what's going to happen is they're going to announce like, hey, in March, we're going to shut the store down. And then the PS3 servers, which haven't been used by a lot of people, are going to be chugging while people dust off their PS3.
Next thing you're going to see Michael like tweet out a picture of him like external hard drives that he's like labeling A through C.
Luckily, because the PS3 came out in 2006, I was a broke high school student, so I didn't have a ton of games on it. It wasn't, but I did have a bunch of Rock Band songs, but luckily that's on the PS4 now. So like the Rock Band stuff's like, I'm so glad the PS5 is backwards compatible because I don't have a PS4 anymore. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like I don't have to worry about the PS4 library, like I can access all that stuff. But it was just the PS3 of just like, they can't keep the store up forever, so let me just torture myself and organize this. And part of me was like, oh, I should download all these demos I still have access to. Because there's some cool demos that are on that store still.
Demos.
I downloaded the Wolverine X-Men Origins Wolverine demo because that demo was good, but I didn't want to buy the whole game. So I did that. I wasted that time, and now I have to like back it up to an external drive just in case that PS3 dies. I can then transfer the data to something else. But I refuse to buy a new internal drive because that's stupid. I have plenty of external drives, so that is my journey with the PS3. Because like Nintendo have just been dicks with the Wii store, just we just killed it.
Yeah.
Fuck you, we killed it. Like Sony can totally do that.
Yeah.
And they can point to Nintendo and be like, you guys let Nintendo do it. Though I did have one or two people that were on their PS3s, which I was just like, what the fuck? Like, how? Like, my whole PS3 list is dead, where it's like everyone on that list says hasn't been on in two or more years.
Yeah.
And then there was like two people that were on, and I was just like, would it be rude to ask them? Because I don't even know who they are, because they don't have their real name like on the PS3. So it's like, oh shit,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? Why?
All right,
but
is that it for you?
Yeah, that was it. That was it for me.
All right, I'm not sure if he's still here or not anymore. But Glorious War, while Michael was talking, I did a little bit of Googling. And I'm a little bit. Michael and I are a little bit more wrong than I thought, but at the same time, there's a couple things that we were right on. So, just as a reference, Michael, how many franchise-wise do you think franchise lifetime copies of Doom has sold?
Probably the 10 to 12 million, depending on how many you do.
It's 10 million.
Yeah.
So, how many copies of the Borderlands franchise has sold?
Probably each one.
Yeah, the whole series. In total. So
the whole series, I would probably say they're probably 10 to 20.
43 million.
43 million?
Yep.
Okay. But here's the thing, 2K still has a chunk of that thing.
Right.
So
that's what he said, is that Gearbox owns the Borderlands IP, but they have an exclusive publishing deal with Take-Two. But here's the other part of it that gets into it as well. How many Elder Scrolls copies do you think have been sold franchise-wise?
That's probably in the 25 to 50 million.
58 million.
58 million, yeah.
So, like, that's 70 million just from those two studios. Like, or 68 million. So, I mean, there's a lot to be had there, too. And, like, I didn't look up, like, Fallout franchise sales. So, I mean, like, when you start adding everything up together, like, that's where it gets a little crazy in terms of, like, value. So
yeah, and that's where a majority of the money comes from, is from the Bethesda Softworks studio. Fallout is looking at probably 30 million over their franchise.
It's 13.51 million sold worldwide
for Fallout 4.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where that 7.5, that Bethesda value comes from this Bethesda Softworks. So going at their smaller studios is
Yeah, I mean just Elder Scrolls, I think any company would take. I mean, so as an example, so by itself, Gearbox, has a franchise that sold 43 million. I don't know their other. I don't consider their other franchises successful. And that sold 43 million copies lifetime, and that's worth 1.2 billion. So how much is the studio by itself that sold 58 million copies of a game? 2 billion. And then are the other studios worth 5? Yeah, apparently.
Potentially.
So
yeah.
All right. Questions. You can send us questions using hashtag AskDigitalDays. We haven't gotten a whole lot of them lately, but just so if anything pops into your head that we're talking about, or if you want us to elaborate more on a subject, or if we were wrong, like Glorious War saying that we were, he had a little bit of a debate, which is great. I love to have those conversations with people like that, and it makes me look things up, because I think if you asked me if Doom would have sold, if over under on Doom selling 10 million, I would have said over. So from a 25-year-old plus franchise, but so you can send us those, like I said, using hashtag AskDigitalDays. So Chad sent us a question: possible rumor that Halo might come to the Switch, and what that might mean for the industry, PlayStation versus Xbox. So you did a little bit of digging on this, right?
So there was a thing where I think it was 343, where they were looking at bringing the Halo Master Chief Collection to additional places to play. It sounds like they might have been hinting at it coming to the Epic Games Store, as opposed to the Master Chief Collection coming to flat out other platforms. Especially the Switch stuff was something people were hopeful for because they have a somewhat of a relationship with Nintendo and publishing their games
huge
on.
Rumors like a year ago that Game Pass was coming to Switch.
Yeah, but Nintendo apparently was like, no, it's not, which makes sense for Nintendo. Yeah, so it sounds like the tease was for the Epic Game Store. Which is
again is fascinating of like what like we've been talking about the different business models. Like Microsoft already has a PlayStation Microsoft already has a Microsoft Store on PC, and a lot of their games are on Steam. Yes, it does suck, but and a lot of their games are on Steam also. So like, what's the benefit from more exposure? I guess like, so now you're going to be on Xbox PC, Steam PC, Epic Game Store, Xbox Console Store, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Game Pass. Like, so again, it's just, like for some reason, their data shows that people don't know that there's an Xbox Store on PC, but they have a subscription, or they're on the Epic Game Store because of Fortnite.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it comes. I don't know if it'll run well on the Switch, though. They're technically like Hitman and Controller on the Switch, but they're streaming. So I guess they could stream.
It's pretty good. Like, I've seen some Hitman stuff. It's
not bad.
Yeah, people are saying that it is cloud, but it's not broken cloud. So
yeah, so I could maybe if they can somehow get their games on there.
I mean, yeah, Halo Infinite might be a challenge, but Halo like 1, 2, and 3 I think could do it on the Switch, don't you?
They did some good work to those Halo games, but yeah, they could probably definitely make it work. It'd be interesting to see it go on the Switch. I just don't see it happening. I think everyone pointing to like it's going to come to Epic Game Store is probably what they're talking about, and that's a fucking bummer if that's the case.
All right, that's our show. So again, please send us questions using hashtag AskDigitalDays. Please give us a review if you can. If you can sign in. I know not everybody likes to sign in, but maybe sign in, leave a review, and sign out. Maybe, please. Follow us on social medias. You can follow Michael at First MJC. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. You can follow the main account at Digital Days Pod. Links to the Facebook group, Discord channel are in the show notes. patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming, where there's different tiers: $1, $3, $5, $7. Gets you a couple different things. $7 is the monthly episode. $5 is 24-hour early access. Things like that. As always, feedback on Patreon is needed. If positive or negative, it costs too much money. Tell us. This isn't worth $3. I'd like to hear that. I think that's a good value. Maybe tell me why you don't use Patreon. Maybe, anything like that is always appreciated. And those feedbacks are taken under advisement. I have a notebook that I try to keep stuff in, or I take a lot of screenshots of stuff. I was cleaning my phone out the other day, and I forgot how much screenshots of things that I had taken of comments or feedback or other stuff that I shouldn't have looked at. But overall, like we would love to see the feedback and just see ways to alter it. Does it cost too much? Does it not cost enough? Is there not enough? Is the juice not worth a squeeze? I'm not giving you $7 just for that, or this, that, or the other. Any of that feedback is always appreciated. And other than that, Michael, you got anything else?
No, that covered everything. Usually do, so I'm just here to say bye.
Yeah, one week I'll just make him host.
Yeah.
All right. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.